Howdy. Welcome back to Dion Talk. One of the things that's really hard to do is set your rents in a hot market. Normally, what I've done in the past, and if I had followed my own advice, I would have lost a bunch of money, was I would look at Rentometer. I actually have an annual Rentometer account, and I would call the housing authority because they're usually spot on for area average rents. But the problem with Rentometer and the housing authority is they base their data on historical data. What happened in the last 12 months is generally where they're going to set their rents. And when rents are going up as fast as we're seeing in the current year, where in Washington state, we're seeing 20 to 40% rent increases, that data is old. So I made this video on how to set rents in a hot market. What I'm going to do today is to talk to somebody who had to do that. Matt just closed on a duplex and was able to use the binder method to successfully get a rent increase out of existing tenants. What I would like to do is have Matt explain how that worked. But before we get to that, Matt, can you take a couple of minutes, tell us about the size of your portfolio and a little bit about this property that we're going to talk about?
Sure. All right. So currently, the only property we have as an investment property is just that duplex that we're going to house hack. But by October 15th, we'll have our current residence, the townhouse that I'm currently in, as a second rental as well.
So one of the things that a lot of people forget about house hacking, we know the way of using the duplex. You're buying a duplex, you're going to live in one side and rent out the other, right? Mm-hmm. But where you're living now, did you buy the house that you're in now? The townhouse?
Bought this house 3 years ago.
Okay. Owner occupied loan?
Yes.
Low down payment?
Yeah, it was actually a VA loan, so 0% down.
30-year fixed rate loan?
Yep.
Okay. That's house hacking. You are now turning that house into a rental. So that's a brilliant strategy too that a lot of people forget is a thing. You had existing tenants already, and you're on the West Coast, just like me. We're both West Coast investors. For now, I hear later that you're going to talk a little bit about investing, not in Georgia, but not on the West Coast either.
Right.
How did you find this duplex?
So this one was just scouring the MLS. If you talk to my wife, you could probably hear the frustration. I was on there every second I possibly could be. If there was a lull, I was on it. And I set up the email alerts if something came up that was within my criteria. And I was on there so much that I was seeing the houses come on before they even shot the email to me. So just strictly off the MLS. I've been looking since March of 2021 and just got outbid on a few properties. And finally, this one came up and it was less than everything else that I made offers on. But it was a 3-bed, 2 bath. The price was right. Rents were, if they were at market rents, were really good and the thing would cash flow very well. So we went for it. And luckily this time we didn't get outbid.
How are you funding this purchase?
This one's with an FHA loan. So we went for just the 5% down. Wanted to try to keep as much capital in our pocket as possible.
That's a good strategy. And the really cool thing with FHA, if somebody's watching, single family houses, we know FHA is 3.5% down. Conventional can be 3 or 5% down, depending on if you're a first time home buyer or not. But usually, currently, small multifamily is 15 or 20% down with conventional. So FHA, the benefit is it's still 3.5% down even for the duplex. In November of 2021, there is a loan product coming out where you can use a conventional loan, 5% down for small multifamily, with the caveat of you can only make 80% of the area median income, which is a good sign, meaning that that product is probably going to come back as an available loan product like it used to be. My first duplex was a 5% down conventional loan. Like you, I had the VA loan, but I wanted to keep it in my back pocket just in case the right property pops up at a time when I don't have any money saved up for a down payment. Okay, so you found it on the MLS. All of my deals are from the MLS as well. And you're funding it with an FHA loan. Existing tenants, do you know how long that they've been in the unit?
I want to say they've been there for around 2 to 3 years now.
Okay, and what were they paying for rent before you purchased?
$1,350.
$1,350. And after using the binder strategy with the tenants, how did that meeting go?
It went surprisingly well. I'm the kind of person when I go into something, I'm thinking about the worst case scenario. And this was extremely smooth. And just like you talk about in all your videos, they were ecstatic when they heard that they got a say in what the rent was going to be. So market rents for the area are $18.50. And, I printed out the rentometer page, a couple of Facebook marketplace ads for rentals that had similar bed bath combination and square footage and in relatively the same area. A few improvements that we're going to do to the property as well, because it's a 1980s duplex that did not have a lot of improvements since it was built. I kind of laid that all out for them. And then I slid the binder over, just like you said. And I said, what do you think is fair? And it's a boyfriend and a girlfriend. And the boyfriend said, oh, well, it's $18.50. Like, that's what we're going to pay. And then you see the girlfriend kind of cringe. She's like, well, he's saying that we have a choice. And I kind of said, you know what, if you need to discuss it for a couple minutes, I could take a walk and then I can come back and you can tell me what you think. He said, no need. And then the girlfriend was like, yeah, we do. I came back and they said, we can comfortably do 1,600. But if that doesn't work, and I was like, no, we'll do 1,600. And they're like, really? You'll let us do that? I'm like, yeah, let's do 1,600. And that was much more than I thought we were going to be able to raise rents going into the conversation. And they're extremely happy. It worked just like you say.
Yeah, the weird byproduct is coming away from a meeting where a tenant's rent increases and they're happy.
Yeah.
To me, that's one of the main reasons why I really tried to get on BiggerPockets and talk about it in the forums is to get that information out there, that there's a way to be a landlord where you have happy tenants. Happy tenants don't trash places. Happy tenants don't leave. You don't have tenant turnover. And somebody watching right now that isn't familiar with the binder strategy, or probably all of my content, if this is your first time to my channel, is thinking that you made a mistake. You should have just kicked them out and set your rents at 18. Tenant turnover is expensive. The time and mental energy draining of advertising and screening for tenants and placing a tenant. And then the rehab, probably flooring and paint, can be anywhere from $2,000 to $7,000 easily. And that couple $100 a month would take years to make up. Plus the month or so that you miss for the rehab. The binder strategy is easier on you. You don't have to deal with the tenant turnover. You have happy tenants. You're probably not going to have to deal with the tenant turnover next year. And they requested the rent to go up more than you expected. And I've used this strategy on tenants who have then seen the video where I explain, here is how I got the tenants to request the video or request the rent increase. And they came to me and they said, hey, I saw your video. They said, you're right. I saw the area averages and I know that your best bet would have been to kick me out and relist it at the highest rent. But I got to stay. And even with that rent increase, it's a better deal than I would have got somewhere else. So going forward, now that you are going to be renting out the townhouse, you have the duplex that you're house hacking, so you're going to have cash flow. Are you spending money to live in the duplex, or how is that cash flow looking for you?
The good thing about that is with the raise in rent to 1,600, we're not living mortgage free there. But the good news is the payment compared to our current townhouse is $400 less. So like what you say, you're able to save more, which then gets you to the next down payment faster. And that's the big benefit of doing this. And then the townhouse itself will cash flow roughly $500 a month.
So an extra basic $900 every month that you get to add to your savings rate without having to work more.
Right.
Right. One of the really cool things about house hacking is we know it reduces or eliminates our housing expense. Like right now, I'm living in a fourplex and I'm profiting $1,700 a month to live in a fourplex. While you're living there, you've reduced your housing expenses. Whenever I'm purchasing a duplex, what I do is I run the numbers as if it's after I've moved out. The units are rented. This is my mortgage payment. This is how much I set aside for CapEx, maintenance, repairs, vacancy. What's left is the cash flow after I've moved out and the rents and the units are rented out. How's that going to look like for you with this duplex?
So I run it very similar to what you just mentioned. Did the market rent, which is about $1,800 per unit, doing 5% for maintenance, 5% for CapEx, and 5% for vacancy. And with all that, it would come out to be a 17% cash on cash return. And we cash flow roughly $600 a month on that one once we move out.
it does start slow. My first couple of purchases were a couple of years apart, but that income snowball starts to kick in. Going forward, how do you see your investing going?
Going forward, because on the West Coast, the price of entry is just so high. We've kind of started to shift our focus to going to some out-of-state investing, and we've kind of settled on Kentucky as the area to do that, primarily because the price points are much lower than the West Coast, and you can realistically find 1% rule deals on the MLS. They're actually plentiful out there if you're looking at small multifamilies, especially.
Distance investing is a change to the strategy that you've been using, but it can make sense. And you're doing it in the order that I would suggest. A lot of people think, I live in a high cost of living area, I need to invest at a distance. The higher the cost of living that you live in, the more impactful house hacking is. So you've used two strategies for house hacking. VA loan to get a single family to rent out, and then to get into the duplex to house hack, living in one unit, renting out the other. And then look at distance investing. You're already using the house hacking strategy. Now where you invest, since they're going to be investment properties, it makes sense to do it at a distance. If anybody has any questions for you, how can they get a hold of you?
The best place would probably be through Instagram. My username is m.j.parker503.
Okay. Well, Matt, I really want to thank you for taking the time to come on here and show that, and please don't be offended by this. I think normal guys like us can do this. You don't have billionaire parents. Nobody canceled out their retirement accounts and gave it to you, or did anybody co-sign with you on these loans?
No,
right. So no special secret sauce, literally just find properties, house hack, save for the next property. Brilliant.
Yeah, it really
Thanks
comes down to just, and I don't know if you want to keep this in there, but I think to kind of wrap a bow on the whole thing, it really comes down to if you're just looking at numbers versus emotionally purchasing an investment property, it's a lot easier to get it done. And I'm a relatively safe person. I grew up with a mom that was all about the save money and then retire when you're 65. But with my family, I just don't want to do that anymore. So, it's one of those things where I am stepping out of my comfort zone a little bit, but the fact that it's just looking at numbers makes it a lot easier. And at some point, to break out of the ordinary, you kind of just have to, risk it for the biscuit, And I hope that my portfolio can grow just like yours, and we can kind of go from there. So really appreciate you having me on, Dion.
You've got a killer start. Living in the duplex, living in half a duplex. Some people say, well, I would never want to do that, because somehow they're better than the literally millions of families who live in apartments and share multiple walls.
Right.
Isn't something you have to do forever. House hacking for a few years, like you were in the townhouse for 3 years, and now that's going to be a cash flowing rental where you were able to use owner occupied financing to get the property. Using this duplex, you're not going to be there for the next 10, 15, 20 years. But if you're there for a few years, saving that extra cash flow that you were paying for housing, is going to accelerate your ability to make work optional sooner. Awesome. Thanks a lot for coming on here, Matt. Until my next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk.
We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.
Always feels a little weird to stare at the camera and say that at the last minute, because when I put in that little clip at the end where the phone number's been changed, it cuts back the video. So I always got to stretch that. Nice.
It's funny. We both missed the not today.
But not today. Nice. Perfect. Man, that's cool. And you're doing this right too, going on different podcasts and educating yourself with some really simple concepts. Some people really want to complicate investing with LLC and business structure, and you have to know everything before you take any movements, instead of you live in the duplex and now you'll figure out things like, oh, where do I get my lease? And what is my criteria? Do I want a high credit score? Do I want a high income? What do I care about evictions? Do I care about criminal? I mean, you've got to figure out all that kind of stuff while you have a rental. Well, it's not like it's a deal breaker if you make some mistakes in the beginning.
Yeah, it definitely is. Figure it out as you go. I know I definitely at the start was trying to make it a lot more complicated than it needed to be. And then a lot of those one rental at a time videos really do. They're just, and you're on there and you're saying, just get your buy box, stick to that. When you find it, go for it. And,
right. And
I really appreciate all that content, because it really does, like, just keep it simple, execute on that. And then maybe in the future, when more opportunities come up, it will get more complicated. But then at that point, you just have to figure it out. And there's so many resources out there.
And so you said it perfectly. You start out as simple as you can, and later you can make it as complex as you want, but then you're ready. You have the cash flow to support it. You have the base knowledge, where a lot of people get into real estate and they think, I want to do the BRRRR method because I don't need a lot of money. I'm going to recycle capital. I want to flip because I get big lump sums of money. Well, there's so many stages in a BRRRR that can go wrong. After repair value, time it takes for the contractor to finish things, find a contractor, cost of materials can triple because of a pandemic. All of these things that can screw that up in the beginning, that can be an investing killer, where later, when you have the knowledge base and you have the cash flow and you have the reserves, you can try those strategies, make things a little more complicated. And when you make a mistake, you're set back a little. You're not just, your investing isn't murdered. It hit a speed bump. It was a really good way to look at it. Later, let it be as complicated as you want. That's how I feel about the LLC thing. I don't think a new investor needs one for any reason. There's no tax benefit. There's no asset protection. If you have partners, LLC makes sense. If you need hard money or commercial lending, LLC makes sense. But so many people think, I can't buy a property until I have an LLC, which has no history, can't get lending, can't use your VA, can't owner occupy. And then you can't pay yourself because you're separate from that. And it just creates this massive confusing thing that if you have 20 properties and you have the business place and you can spend money on having somebody else set up your LLC and explain to you how to do it, sure, waste your money on it then, not in the beginning. Awesome. That's pretty cool. I looked down here for a second and thought I forgot to hit record.
That would have been amazing. Thought we did the recording, but not today.
All right, we'll start over.
Yeah.
All right, man. Keep me in mind for questions. Always feel free to reach out.
Absolutely. Hey, appreciate your content, man, and keep it up. I'm going to keep watching.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, my brother has the same problem. He had a few rental properties, and then the crash happened. And in 2011, he had a bunch of money, so he bought a bunch of rental properties super cheap. He hasn't bought one in 6 years because now it's too expensive. You can't make money do it. He told me I was an idiot the first time I bought a duplex. He says, how can you afford a mortgage like that? Now he actually watches some videos and asks some questions and stuff. He figured I figured out what I was doing because mine was different than his. But the people who invested from 2011 to 2014, and that was their main investing, some of them don't know how to invest now. And they say things like, oh, wait for the crash because it worked last time. Well, what if the crash is 20 years away? It's 20 years of working, missing, people that have been waiting since 2013 are missing cash flow, appreciation, principal pay down. I mean, just in this last year, and this I will probably take out of the video, just from owning the properties that I do, my net worth changed by $600,000 in appreciation. Never count on appreciation. I don't invest for appreciation, but it's a thing. It's like a real thing that's happening, which wouldn't happen if I wasn't buying these properties. Yeah, I'll probably take that out.
Yeah, you don't want to.
It's super easy if you're rich. I'm like, I wasn't rich 10 years ago, but it took time to get there.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, just this townhouse has appreciated $100,000 in 3 years.
You've gained $100,000 where somebody in your exact same situation has been paying rent for those last 3 years, probably not very far from you. And the place that they're paying rent on has also gained that much in appreciation, but it went to the owner. Real
estate really is just a cheat code to wealth. It's crazy.
That's a catchphrase for a t-shirt. The cheat code to wealth.
Yeah. Real estate really is just a Cheat code to wealth. It's crazy. Cheat code to wealth.